This morning's offering from Connor Knighton comes complete with a cherry on top.
This is cherry country. Central Washington's long, sunny summer days and cool evenings make the region an ideal place to grow all sorts of sweet cherries, from the deep red Bing to the golden yellow tinted Rainier.
This is really, I think, the best place on the earth to grow cherries, on Stamelt Hill.
Kyle Matheson is a fourth-generation cherry farmer. His family owns Stamelt Growers in Wenatchee, Washington, one of America's largest cherry producers. In winter, their orchards are covered in snow. Then in spring, the buds begin to blossom. Come summer, it's harvest time.
What types of cherries are these?
These are skenas. These are the ones that split when they see a little bit of a rain cloud. They don't take much to split a skena.
A split or cracked cherry is not only less attractive, it's also more prone to rot. The fragile fruit can rupture if rainwater sits for too long on the skin.
It goes right through the skin of the cherry, and this cherry swells and swells, and pretty soon it swells so much that it breaks the skin. And so the idea is get that water off the cherry so it doesn't break the skin.
Decades ago, cherry farmers came up with what sounded like a crazy idea to protect their crop. They would blow dry the cherry trees from above with helicopters.
Certainly we could go out there, individually or with a leaf blower, but on the magnitude that we're talking about with the number of acres and trees that we have to dry, it's just really the only effective way to move through the orchard quickly.
Pilot Ryan McDonald is the owner of Northwind Aviation, a company with a fleet of helicopters on standby during the summer, ready to provide drying services for Washington farmers.
What's the time window like between when it stops raining and when you need to be in the air?
Typically, you want to be done drying within an hour to 2 hours. After the 2-hour window, the tree is really taking in a lot of that water, and you're going to start seeing splits.
A lot of these families have been here farming the same ground for generations.
McDonald grew up on a Washington cherry farm. A former member of the U.S. snowboard team and an Army veteran, his love of flying inspired him to start his own aviation company focused on agriculture. For cherry drying, pilots need to fly so low that it can be a risky business.
There's just a lot of hazards in doing what we do. Obviously, we're hovering over trees, so there's not an ideal landing spot for an emergency. Inevitably, there's power lines, there's other trees, obstacles around, and so you have to maintain a high level of alertness and pay attention, even though you're mowing the grass for hours on end. Every year, unfortunately, there is certain incidents that happen in this from pilots just losing focus for a split second.
McDonald demonstrated his flying technique for us, but there hasn't been much need for cherry drying this year. It's barely rained.
It's been a perfect year. I mean, it's probably one of the best cherry years I've ever remembered.
While some smaller farmers might take their chances with the forecast, Kyle Matheson pays a retainer to keep pilots on standby.
When you need them, you need them.
So it's kind of like you're buying insurance then.
You're buying insurance, right? It is kind of an insurance policy, you're right.
Are there summers where you might not have them fly at all?
That's the best summer.
Okay.
Cherry customers are choosy. The summer fruit is often an impulse purchase.
People put bananas and apples on their grocery list, but very rarely cherries. And so the cherries are, if they look shiny and fresh, then people buy them. And the splits, they don't really encourage that purchase.
For now, pilots like Ryan McDonald are spending the summer watching the skies, ready to take off whenever rain starts to fall.
Almost every person who buys a cherry at the grocery store has no idea that someone like you was involved in getting that to the supermarket. Does that bother you at all?
Nope. There's a lot of aspects about farming that people don't know are taking place. And there is a lot of links in the chain to get food from the ground to the stores. And it's great to be a part of it.
With a record 45 million of us expected to be on the move this holiday weekend, Chris Van Cleve looks back at 100 years of flying on America's oldest airline.
Good morning, welcome aboard. We can take 5 passengers.
More. 5 more, here we go.
When you picture a garage sale,
I can't beat this deal.
you might think of your neighbor's driveway down the street. Not an aviation workshop in the shadow of the world's busiest airport in Atlanta, where Delta Airlines holds their monthly surplus sale.
Here, we have another bag.
How are you going to get all this stuff home?
We actually flew down with empty bags.
Delta fans came from as far as Michigan and even Korea to buy the stuff the airline no longer needs, from seats to engine parts, and a chance, these folks say, to have a piece of airplane history.
I actually need a bar cart in my apartment of these exact dimensions.
Sarah Zeiss came in search of this piece of Delta, a well-used beverage cart.
Drive slow.
Though getting it home will be a journey all its own. Proceeds from the sale go right across the parking lot to the Delta Flight Museum, now celebrating the airline's 100th year, a first for an American carrier.
This is one of my favorite little items.
It's a century of service that started without beverage carts or passengers, but due to a tiny pest. Marie Force is the archives director here.
Does Delta owe its existence to a boll weevil
It does.
infestation?
It is the most unique beginning of a U.S. airline, I think. It's the only airline that started as a crop dusting company.
Before Delta, it was Huff Dalen Dusters, started in 1925 in Macon, Georgia.
After the first growing season, they realized that most of the center of the business was in the Mississippi Delta region. And so that's where the name Delta comes from.
And in 1929, Delta Airlines founder C.E. Woolman expanded the company from pest control to people. Its first passenger flight from Dallas, Texas to Jackson, Mississippi, with 2 stops in Louisiana along the way.
How much was that first ticket?
That first ticket was $90 round trip.
About $1,700 today. Expensive, and not for everyone.
At that time, about 80% of Delta's passengers were businessmen, and they're trying to speed up their business. So a 5-hour flight would take about 12 hours by train.
Nearly a century after that first flight, Delta now has more than 5,000 a day. The airline has survived mergers, recessions, and bankruptcy. Growing from that single route to a nationwide carrier as it grew into the global force we know today.
Fasten your seatbelt by inserting the metal tip into the buckle.
And if you've flown Delta lately, you've seen flight attendant Susan Slater in the pre-flight safety video.
And keep it fastened whenever you're seated.
If you've flown Delta in the last 60 years, you may have shared a cabin with either Susan or Kay Carpenter.
And you started at Delta when?
In January of 1966.
And I started in March 2nd, 1964.
They started during the golden age of air travel, that romanticized era of flights with exceptional service, extravagant meals, and everyone dressed to the nines.
And you had to be unmarried. Your hair couldn't touch a collar. You had a weight restriction. Back then, I think I weighed 103 pounds, and I was 5'2.5". I'm 5 feet now, barely, and not 103.
What was it about the job that you think
I had
spoke to you
no
so
idea
much?
what the job was. All I knew is that this was glamour personified.
We certainly had a so-called golden age of flying back in the early 1960s, but it was less convenient. There were fewer flights. You often had to connect, and it certainly wasn't as reliable and safe as it is today.
Atmosphere Research Group's Henry Hartevelt is an airline industry analyst who says no need to be quite so nostalgic.
We're in a new type of golden age now, where flying is a lot more accessible. You can either buy or create a much nicer journey for yourself. You can buy an extra legroom seat. You can pay for priority boarding. And by the way, if you don't need or value those things, or perhaps can't afford it, you're not being charged for services that you don't want.
Air travel is one of the great bargains. If you think about the average fare today versus where it was 30, 40 years ago, it's less than half of what you pay in real dollars.
Ed Bastian is the CEO of Delta Airlines. While low fares are sought after by some flyers, Delta has built its business around a premium experience.
The single biggest reason why people chose an airline was fare. Whoever had the lowest cost won. And Delta, well, yes, we have a product to compete on the lower end. The majority of our revenue comes from higher end tickets.
Their 100th summer is about to take flight amid clouds of uncertainty, worries about a slowing economy and aviation safety. But Bastian says it could still be their busiest ever as he looks to the future.
So what do you see for Delta's next 100 years? Paint me a picture of what the next century of Delta looks like.
When you think in the United States, air travel is relatively ubiquitous. You jump on a plane almost any hour of the day and get to almost anywhere you want, pretty easily. However, when you think about the world and you realize that only 1 in 5 people in the world have even been on an airplane, it's pretty remarkable. So we need to figure out ways to make it accessible, to make it affordable, to make it sustainable.
I think part of that legacy is just how much the world has shrunk in those 100 years.
Yeah, that's what we do. We make the world a more connected place, a smaller place, and that's needed now more than ever.
Delta helped shrink the world in the 20th century, and they hope that growth continues thanks to folks like Susan Slater and Kay Carpenter.
Kay, what about you? What makes you keep coming back year after year?
Well, it's been a wonderful adventure. I never dreamed that I would be here for this long. When I started, we had just small airplanes. We flew to small cities, and now we fly to 6 continents. So I tell all these new hire flight attendants that to always remember that 1 mile on a highway is going to take you exactly 1 mile. But a mile on a runway will take you anywhere.
Fasten your seatbelt. With David Pogue, we're taking off on a voyage to the future.
I'm in a chase plane high over Lake Champlain in Vermont to observe one of the world's first electric airplanes. And I do mean chase plane.
I can't even keep up with him. I'm full power and he's walking away from me.
Our pilot is Chris Caputo.
Come on, man, step on it. I can't do anything else, David. I don't have afterburner. 738 with you.
For years, you've been able to watch cool-looking electric plane videos on YouTube, created by some of the 300 companies who are working on them. But Beta Technologies in Burlington, Vermont is unique.
I believe we're the only company flying people.
Kyle Clark is Beta's CEO and founder. Its electric plane can carry 6 people and flies 250 miles on one charge.
But every year, batteries get better and better, about 7% per year. That means in 7 years, we'll double that. In another 7 years, we'll double that again.
So you think before you and I die that we will fly on an electric-powered jetliner?
Yes, absolutely.
Traditional airplanes pump out about 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide every year. Electric planes produce no emissions at all, and that's only their first advantage.
One of the things that I think is underappreciated in electric aviation is that, and it's quiet, you can actually hear the wind noise over the fuselage. You feel like a bird.
Electric motors are much simpler than jet engines, too. They contain 1/10 as many parts. Furthermore, electric planes cost far less to fly, since electricity costs only about 1/40th as much as jet fuel. But maybe the most impressive advantage of electric planes is that they can do this.
Wow.
These planes are known in the biz as eVTOLs, a clumsy acronym for Electric Vertical Takeoff and Landing. They don't need a runway to take off, but they can still fly forward the usual way.
The propellers on the front are used in both forms of flight. In the hover portion of the flight, they're tilted up. The 6 propellers in the back are just used in the lifting portion of the flight, so the hover portion of the flight.
Adam Goldstein is the founder and CEO of Archer Aviation, an eVTOL company in San Jose, California, devoted to creating air taxis. You'll board the air taxi from a so-called vertiport downtown, and then fly to the airport, for example, to catch your traditional flight. Goldstein says your eVTOL flight will cost about as much as an Uber or Lyft ride.
And there's lots of traffic that will congest the roads in between the city centers and those airports. Yeah. Manhattan to a JFK is a great example where it's actually not that far on the ground, but takes a really long time using ground transportation.
Well, this sounds great. Planes that are faster, safer, cheaper, more reliable, and better for the environment. So, what's the holdup?
You're talking about a class of airplanes that did not exist.
Aerospace consultant Sergio Cicuta can tell you what the last hurdle is: the Federal Aviation Administration.
The FAA is a very complex task. They make sure that we can walk onto one of the planes and be in no more danger than getting out of bed.
The need for FAA approval explains two strange aspects of Beta's plane. First, it's available with or without its vertical propellers. Clark believes that it will be easier to get initial FAA approval for a traditional plane than one that takes off vertically. As for the second strange thing, Beta's goal isn't creating air taxis.
There are a lot of ways that we can make a meaningful dent on the emissions of aviation before we start to do the thing that everybody talks about, jumping over traffic.
Yeah.
Moving cargo, moving medical, all of those things happen first.
Really? The world's first electric planes will make history by carrying boxes?
Let's point out, cargo room.
Yes.
For consultant Cicuta, that makes perfect sense.
All the way back there.
Exactly.
One of the goals from Amazon is to have the majority of their products to be available the same day in large metropolitan areas. What if I can actually take off and land from one warehouse to the other warehouse and move this cargo? I always think of the Beta airplane as the Amazon truck with wings.
Today, every airline has a desperate pilot shortage. That's one reason that most eVTOLs will eventually be self-flying.
In the 2030s, 2040s, there's going to be a very good chance that you're going to walk into an airplane where there's no pilot.
But in the near term, the FAA will require a pilot.
So with your left hand, just slowly pick up the lift lever.
Oh, I can actually feel vibration.
The aircraft's going to lift off the ground.
Fortunately, flying these planes isn't rocket science, as Beta pilot Chris Caputo showed me in Beta's simulator.
Can we fly over the lake?
Absolutely. So now what we're going to do is we're going to transition onto the wing of the plane.
Oh, okay.
Just push forward with your right hand a little forward pressure. So now we're just flying on the wing of the plane. We're literally just sipping energy.
After 20 simulated minutes flying over simulated Lake Champlain, it was time to simulated land.
Touchdown. Thank you for flying Airpogue.
You're very welcome.
We know that you have a choice when it comes to electric aircraft. Actually, you don't.
Beta and Archer have received millions of dollars worth of orders from various airlines and military branches. Both of them, plus an air taxi company called Joby, have already delivered some planes to the Air Force. All three companies expect to receive FAA approval and begin flying in the U.S. next year. On the day of our visit, Beta Technologies unveiled its new factory, the first electric plane plant outside of China. Among the dignitaries in attendance, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders.
So it is an extraordinary day, not just for Vermont or for the country, but I think for aviation and in taking on climate change as well.
Why Vermont? It seems like all the engineers and the programmers are in Silicon Valley.
In Vermont, there's a heavy awareness of climate change. And having a group of people working on this that not only are really good at what they do, but they care about the mission, gives them a little extra oomph at 2 in the morning when we're trying to get ready for a flight test the next morning.
We are cleared to land.
Among those passionate Vermont employees, former Delta pilot Chris Caputo.
I've flown this aircraft in a while, so don't judge my landing too much, guys.
Did you take a pay cut to come here?
I did. A pretty healthy pay cut. But it's more about the mission that this company is on to decarbonize aviation and do something good for our planet, our country, and the world, and your kids, my kids, and the next generation.
A building hailed as a flight of fancy from a long-gone era is experiencing a rebirth. Chris Van Cleve has our boarding pass.
The Trans World Airlines Flight Center at JFK Airport has been called a cathedral to aviation, the Grand Central Station of the jet age.
It has a sense of grandeur. It's inspiring, a building like that. It looks
like a bird taking flight. When you're inside of it, then you're part of this theatricality of how people move through space. We don't have other buildings like that.
When it opened in 1962, the Flight Center was more than a terminal. It was its own destination.
Everywhere, the look, the soaring spirit of flight itself. So many new conveniences, luxurious lounges, shops, and restaurants.
Designed by famed architect Eero Saarinen, the man behind the St. Louis Arch.
He made buildings do something they'd never done before.
Louis Hartman is an architectural historian at New York University.
How was it received in the 60s when it opened?
Popular reception, through the roof. People loved it. They thought it was incredible.
While the building's fame grew through pop culture, here's Leonardo DiCaprio strolling through in Catch Me If You Can. TWA's fortunes floundered.
Trans World Airlines filed for bankruptcy today.
The Flight Center was shuttered in 2001. It sat closed, but not forgotten.
The bulldozer pulled up to the building, was ready to knock it down because it was in the path of progress. Luckily, the preservationists protected the building.
Developer Tyler Morse stepped up in 2014 with a plan to reimagine the aging terminal as the new TWA Hotel.
What was the condition of the building when you took it over?
Filled with asbestos. It was filled with lead paint. And see all these beautiful windows here? We had to replace every single pane of glass.
For Morse, this is a passion project where no detail is too small.
This is the original Saarinen tile. And if you look very closely here, there's actually 3 sizes of tile, and you need that in order to make all these curves.
As it turns out, there are no right angles in the entire building. But Morse wanted everything done right, from the signature clock in the center atrium, to the chili pepper red sunken lounge, to the iconic Solari departure boards, all restored to their original 1962 glory.
This is where everyone was looking to see what time their plane took off, what time their loved ones were landing. All the focus was on this board, so we wanted to be historically authentic here.
Which meant going to Udine, Italy, 2 hours outside of Venice, where the original board was made 57 years ago. The flip signs and their distinctive sound have been a staple of train stations and airports worldwide. Then, as now, the sign's 34,000 flaps are created by hand. Another throwback that will have people looking up.
So this will be your bar.
This is our bar. Welcome to Connie.
Is this Lockheed Constellation? It's finding new life as a cocktail lounge.
And this will be open for anybody to come play?
Yep. Come in here, you have a drink, fly the plane a little bit.
Why do you have a beverage cart? Why do you not?
Aviation superfan Tommy Fletcher was just 4 when the Flight Center closed, but nearly 18 years later, he was one of the first to book a room.
When you think of TWA, you just think it's like luxurious and fancy and fun. And so kind of to be able to experience that at an airport is exciting. It's awesome.
It'll cost him around $300 a night, complete with furniture designed by Saarinen and multi-paned glass to keep out the jet noise. There's also a rooftop infinity pool, 6 restaurants, and 8 bars.
When you walk in there the first time, what do you think is going to be going through your head?
I guess just happiness. Like when you walk into Disney, like that happiness and excitement. I feel like that because it's kind of like my Disney World a little bit.
But Wednesday's opening day hasn't come cheap. The project's price tag is close to $300 million.
This is a place that people want to be. JFK is the sexiest airport in the world.
Said no one ever. You really think they're going to come all the way out here to have a drink at the airplane bar and dinner at one of the restaurants?
I think some of them will come.
Morse is banking on a little nostalgia, too.
I carry around a TWA tote bag, and I cannot tell you how many people approach me and say, no way, TWA. What's going on with TWA? Are you bringing TWA back? There's still a lot of love for TWA.
Enough love to sell out a trip to a bygone era with a runway view.
Are we there yet? Plenty of parents have heard that question from the back seat. Now, join us on the world's longest airline flight where many a passenger might ask the very same question. Chris Van Cleve joined the boarding line.
With the mentality of a marathon runner, Dwayne Brown showed up to the gate.
Do your friends think you're crazy?
Yes. They said, Dwayne, are you nuts? Are you nuts?
What he is an aviation fanatic at the starting line, along with 160 other passengers, for the latest launch of the world's longest nonstop flight, New York to Singapore.
Let's celebrate this with a big round of applause, everyone. Come on.
A more than 9,500-mile trek connecting two of the world's financial capitals in a mere, get this, 19 or so hours.
Longest flight's been 13 hours, so this will be interesting.
For Donna Scarola and Liz Seco, time is money. They're racing to get to a business meeting and are willing to pay about $4 grand one way to shave 6 hours off their trip.
Makes a huge difference because we're able to get down on the ground earlier than we would have had we taken a non-direct flight.
Enter this specially designed Airbus A350, made from a composite material and carried by two engines. Singapore Airlines says it's up to 30% more efficient than the plane it's replacing and can stay in the air for over 20 hours.
Could you do this route without this airplane?
No. We could do it, we couldn't do it economically, and therefore it wouldn't persist.
Campbell Wilson is a senior vice president at Singapore Airlines.
So we've been intrinsically involved in the whole process of the aircraft's design. It's not to make records, it's to serve a customer need and a customer want.
Please give your attention to the safety video, which will now be shown.
These days, corporate card-carrying business flyers want to get there fast and in comfort. On board, there are 67 business class seats that convert into beds. The other 94 are premium economy, so while you can still get stuck in a middle seat, it's not as cramped as the coach seat you'd typically have to squeeze into.
The idea is that we want to get you there in peak condition.
Chef Anthony McNeil is Singapore Air's food and beverage director. In an effort to combat jet lag, the airline is focusing on nutrition, designing a special low-sodium, low-carb menu.
The philosophy that we've taken with this particular flight is smaller portions at more regular intervals.
Why smaller portions more often?
It gives you some excitement, but also interaction with the crew and also the wines on board and the interaction of the cuisines allows for a much more pleasant flight experience.
The airline also delivers in-seat exercise videos for passengers to get the blood flowing.
Raise legs and circle the ankles twice in each direction.
Hours in and somewhere over Russia, I was in need of a good stretch. It takes 13 flight attendants and 2 sets of pilots to get this show off the ground. There's even a shift change at 30,000 feet, and they can spend their off-duty time here in the crew rest area, off limits to passengers.
We're going to fly across the North Pole.
Captain Ray Chaudhry showed us our flight path, which takes us over the top of the world, offering this Arctic aerial tour.
Is it different doing 19 hours than 4 or 7 or 8?
On a longer flight like this, you have to manage your rest, your fatigue levels, your concentration.
It's an endurance test for passengers, too. I ate, watched a movie, slept, watched another movie, read an entire newspaper, ate again, and we still had 10 hours to go.
You getting bored yet?
No, because I'm a mom of 3. So having this time to myself is actually kind of nice.
And even though it's only 16, 17 hours, 18 hours, I cannot wait for the 20-hour flight.
To keep everyone refreshed, the cabin comes with 16.7 million combinations of light to simulate different times of day. Still, the marathon flight and the 12-hour time change do take their toll.
We come to this final phase of our inaugural flight.
But we made it, even crossing the finish line early, to the delight of Donna Scarola.
Jet lag, you tired?
A little tired, dehydrated. I probably need to drink a lot more water. But other than that, I'm ready to explore Singapore.
Which makes the time saved on this seemingly interminable flight well worth the trip.
Before they were called flight attendants, they were called stewardesses. They were the glamour of flying personified, the picture of jet age sophistication. These are the women of Pan Am. Pan American World Airways, Pan Am, last flew in 1991. For its former employees, the golden age of travel lives on. At reunions like this, held not long ago in Savannah, Georgia.
Stewardesses were highly thought of, and we had to have a bit of college, at least, in which I had. We were happy-go-lucky girls.
90-year-old Kathleen Cook Gray and her daughter Leslie Manning both flew for Pan Am.
I started in 1948. Dinosaur days. Out of San Francisco, I flew to Honolulu every time. It was like a second home. And then we'd go to Shanghai, we'd go to Manila, and we'd go to Sydney, Australia. Our trips were about 3 weeks. I lost all my boyfriends in San Francisco because I was gone too long.
Pan Am was the pioneer in aviation.
A Martin 130, the most advanced piece of commercial flying equipment in the world.
Pan Am was the first airline to have scheduled service across the Atlantic and Pacific. They were the first ones to have an actual airline terminal and have air traffic control and serve hot meals on board an aircraft.
Author and historian Becky Sprecher flew 6 years for the airline.
Part 4 is about the jets, or the glory days, as we all call them.
She says every flyer today owes a debt to one man, the founder of Pan Am.
Juan Trippe was a Navy man, so he decided to style the airline in a nautical fashion, the port and starboard and forward and aft and galleys and so forth. And he named the clippers for the clipper ships. And they were very romantic names, the Empress of the Skies and the West Wind, and these lovely names.
This is Pan American 707 Jet Clipper Service, Flight 116 to Paris.
Flying first class on a clipper was the experience of a lifetime.
People dressed up for it. It was an occasion. The journey was as important as the destination.
Their uniforms were designed by the likes of Adolfo and Edith Head.
This was my first uniform from 1966.
When you put this on, you're like a different person. You go back to being 20.
The journey came complete with a 5-star meal.
We could do just about everything except flambe something. Obviously, you can't light, have flames on an aircraft. We had a wonderful roast, and we got really good at cooking in convection ovens, and I could just lay a pair of tongs on it and know it was rare.
Things like the sweetbreads would have been prepared in Paris by Maxime's.
It's one of the top restaurants in the world, right?
Yes. I mean, the food was just exquisite. The entrees...
Mary O'Con kept the menus from some of those meals.
Lobster thermidor?
Oh, so good. From New York, where I was based, we flew through Europe and through the Middle East, Beirut, Tehran, and then all the way to Bangkok and Hong Kong.
Boarding your flight, you were greeted personally.
We'd get a seat assignment beforehand, and we had to memorize the names and call the passengers by their names.
Sometimes, those names weren't hard to remember.
Lana Turner was on one of my flights, and Lex Barker was with her, and they each had a berth booked, but one berth was never slept in.
Wow. So the Mile High Club existed.
Right.
Pan Am brought the Beatles to the United States, and it brought its employees into contact with worlds they never imagined.
A friend of mine and I ran into a movie crew going into Manila, and they said, would you all like to join us on the set? Well, of course, we'd never been on a movie set before, but this one was a Lulu. It was Apocalypse Now. And we flew up in Francis Coppola's plane and watched some of the filming and came back home. It was just kind of all in a day's work.
On January 21st, 1970, Pan Am introduced Boeing's 747 jumbo jet and ushered in a new era of air travel.
Rome is getting ready.
CBS News covered the event with stories from around the globe.
Paris is ready. Orly Airport is ready to load and unload not one, but God forbid 4 Boeing 747 jumbo jets at the same time.
But 1978 brought deregulation to the airline industry, which turned out to be a mixed blessing for both airlines and passengers. It was the beginning of the end for Pan American.
Many air travelers in this community are seeing the other side of the deregulation coin, the side that allows the major airlines to abandon service to economically marginal towns in order to cash in on the more lucrative routes.
But Pan Am faced a far greater threat.
Pan Am brand recognition globally was right up there with Coca-Cola. So when there were people that wanted to do America harm, they conflated Pan Am with the United States.
This is the CBS News special report, the tragedy of Pan Am 103.
The downing of Pan Am 103 killed 270 people. Leslie Manning felt the shock of Lockerbie personally.
When I saw that airplane and I saw the cockpit and I knew that I had flown on that plane several times, that was devastating.
Pan American never recovered. 3 years later, the airline shut down. But for its employees, those were the days.
It was the sorority that I didn't know I needed. It handpicked the most brilliant, interesting, educated, worldly women that I could even imagine, that I got to have as colleagues, and I loved it and I was comfortable.
We all still talk about our favorite restaurants in Tokyo to eat tonkatsu and where to go for dim sum in Hong Kong at 9 o'clock in the morning. All these different things that we did, it's a unifying language with Pan Am.
It's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. The smoke and the flames now, and the flame is crashing to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it.
The Hindenburg disaster of 1937 claimed 36 lives and put an end to the dream of passenger travel aboard Zeppelins lifted by hydrogen. It's flammable. By contrast, the Goodyear blimps, filled with non-flammable helium, have been safely soaring up and away for decades. Lee Cowan takes us aloft in the latest full-sized model.
Enjoy your flight.
Okay, thank you.
It took 93 years of waiting, but Alice Gracious finally checked this off her bucket list. She climbed into her seat, slung beneath more than 200,000 cubic feet of helium, and a few moments later, Alice was headed into the wild blue yonder in the Goodyear blimp. It's a rare seat indeed aboard a floating icon. Our friend Charles Kuralt had the same pleasure nearly 40 years ago. He described the experience as only he could.
Bumping around in a blimp works a lovely psychological change on a man. Since you know you're not going anywhere fast, you become content to go slow. Cars pass you by. Even seagulls pass you by. None of it seems to matter.
Things haven't changed much since that ride of Kuralt's. In fact, the Goodyear blimps themselves aren't all that different from when they first took to the skies back in 1925.
It looks pretty vintage.
It is vintage. It's actually made out of real wood. Yeah, you don't find that in aviation anymore.
Taylor Laverty is our pilot, one of only 3 women worldwide known to fly an airship.
I can't believe you could just stick your arm out. Like, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like being in a convertible.
It's pretty old school flying. Cruising speed is only a lumbering 35 miles an hour. All Taylor has to steer it are cables and pulleys and a lot of brute strength.
Do you have to put a lot of pressure on it, though?
There's a lot of pressure for when you want to make an actual turn. Yeah, if you want to pick it up.
You got to put all your weight on it.
Oh,
like that.
yeah.
It's a good workout.
Yeah.
It's all thrillingly quaint. But to some at Goodyear, the blimps were starting to become a little too quaint. The time had regretfully come, the company figured, to phase these faithful servants of the air out of service.
You grow attached to it. You know, you've done a lot of big events, and it's taken you across the country. And to one day, everyone say, okay, we have to pull the plug. It's heartbreaking.
Matt St. John flew the last flight of the Spirit of America this past summer, before she was retired with dignity.
That was a tough week for us.
Tougher still for Goodyear's CEO, Richard Kramer, who had a big decision to make.
What do you think would have happened if you had decided that it was time to end the blimp program?
That's something I don't want to find out. It never was going to happen. I think there would have been a revolt to not see the blimp in the skies anymore.
So instead, he decided to invest millions of Goodyear's marketing money into replacing the old blimps with these. the NT model. It's a new generation of airship, 50 feet longer, about 40 miles an hour faster, capable of cruising at freeway speeds. Its engines can swivel in place, making it far more maneuverable than its older cousins. Inside, a skeleton made of carbon fiber. Technically, that makes these new Goodyear blimps not really blimps at all, but semi-rigid airships.
About the only thing that's the same is the helium lifts the thing. That's everything else is different.
Pilot Mike Doherty welcomed us aboard. The updated gondola has room for nearly double the number of passengers, complete with a bay window offering astonishing views.
And that seat back there, that is amazing.
Yeah, we call that the picture window, and that because everybody sits back there and take pictures. It is a beautiful view. There's nothing else like it in aviation. It's really unique.
Gone are the old manual flight controls, replaced with joysticks that operate the airship electronically.
Is it easy to fly?
It's different. It's different to fly. Yeah, it's not physically challenging, and once you get the concepts down, then yeah, it's not so bad to fly.
Goodyear is building 3 of these new NT models at this massive hangar in Akron, Ohio. Each is being assembled piece by piece from parts sent over from a Zeppelin company in Germany. Although we know Goodyear mainly for its tires, the company has actually been in the blimp business most of its corporate life.
So what is all of this?
Now, this is our Raiders of the Lost Ark room.
Eddie Ogden is Goodyear's airship historian. In here are the remnants of a company so trusted in early aeronautics, it was put under contract to build airships for the U.S. Navy. Amelia Earhart even christened one of them. Its most famous were the USS Akron and the USS Macon that were as big as ocean liners.
They could look over the horizon. There was no radar looking over the horizon. There was no satellites. They were also very valuable for spotting submarines.
Passengers, too, soon found airships a luxurious way to cross the Atlantic. It was hailed as the future of air travel. The Hindenburg disaster at Lakehurst, New Jersey in 1937 brought an end to it all.
It's a terrific crash, ladies and gentlemen. It's smoke and it's flames now, and the frame is crashing to the ground, not quite to the mooring mast. All the humanity and all the passengers screaming around it.
Eventually, even the military had little use for airships. But Goodyear found a new purpose for its floating billboards as camera platforms.
Good Lord, these cameras are huge. They were heavy, too. You had basically a studio camera in the blimp.
The first blimp cast was the Rose Parade back in 1955. From then on, Goodyear's aerial TV coverage redefined the way we saw major events, says Goodyear's Scott Bauman.
Back then, this was really revolutionary, right?
It was incredibly revolutionary, and the technology at the time was being developed as we needed it.
You were kind of making it up as you went.
We were discovering it as we went, absolutely.
Today, Goodyear airships remain the most recognizable eye in the sky above major sporting events, especially college football.
Blimp, zoom on a little bit.
We were up for 6 hours, hovering above the Miami-Clemson game back in October. A Goodyear blimp will be watching over Clemson again tomorrow night as they take on Alabama for the College Football National Championship. For Chief Pilot Jerry Hissam, it's as good as it gets.
Does it ever get a little tedious just going around the stadium over and over? No, really not?
I could go fly for another 8 hours.
Could you really?
Yeah. It's fun.
There's just one of the old models left, the Spirit of Innovation, based near Los Angeles, the one that brought Alice Gracious back to Earth. Her ride wasn't just a bucket list moment, it was also her birthday present.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah, was it everything you thought it was going to be?
It was. What a birthday.
What a birthday and what a machine. Old or new, Goodyear's floating ambassadors have both secured and preserved the low and slow style of flying, an intimate, friendly way to get your head up in the clouds.
We mark D-Day plus 75 years this Thursday.
June 6, 1944, when American and Allied forces stormed the shores of Normandy to liberate France from Nazi Germany. Some 24,000 troops parachuted into battle that day, an act of courage volunteers of our own time are determined to honor and remember. Our cover story is reported by Richard Schlesinger.
Anyone looking up along the Hudson River on a recent afternoon could be forgiven for thinking they were merely watching a classic airplane against an iconic backdrop.
Should have New York playing in the background. That helicopter. Good.
What they were really witnessing was a major milestone, one stop in an unlikely journey that had every reason to fail. Miss Montana is 75 years old and hadn't flown in 18 years. She was a museum piece in a hangar at the Missoula, Montana airport. They spent more than a year going all over this C-47, tinkering and tightening, lubricating and calibrating. The goal? Fly her all the way to Normandy, to help recreate one of the most terrifying and momentous days in military history, 75 years ago this Thursday, D-Day. When 175,000 Allied troops and 50,000 vehicles went up against a well-dug-in enemy and changed the course of history. It is a powerful motivation for the people working on this airplane who faced an immense challenge.
If I'd have known how much work was needed, we might not have started this thing. But
Brian Douglas is one of the pilots. For Miss Montana, this is a chance for valor that was denied her by timing. She was built in 1944, but by the time she was ready to go into battle, the war ended.
We sort of look at this mission as finishing what she was built for.
So maybe Miss Montana will get a little glory
maybe
75 years later.
Well, she'll get glory.
If all goes as planned, this plane will join 14 other American C-47s and another group from Europe to retrace the route across the English Channel taken by roughly 850 of these aircraft on D-Day.
Well, in my opinion, the C-47 is one of the greatest planes ever built. Well, this is the parachute wings. There's the 2 stars in it for 2 combat jumps.
Dan McBride was a parachutist with the 101st Airborne. He was one of the first men ferried across the Channel that day. He's 95 now and still remembers D-Day in detail.
And when we flew over the Channel, you know, I was standing right in the door looking down at 600 feet, and it looked to me like the whole Channel was moving. I honestly didn't believe there was that many ships in the world. And it was the greatest sight I think I've ever seen.
He spent a lot of time in C-47s, but there weren't many good times.
No, we, when they started shooting at us, you know, we wanted to get the hell out of this thing, you know. But, yeah, you could hear bullets hitting it. You know, it sounded like rain hitting it. And then the anti-aircraft fire, somebody says, hey, look at the flares. Ain't no flares.
Jeff Weitzel has heard stories like Dan McBride's through the years, and they have moved him.
When you get up tomorrow morning and you see the sun come up, please thank God for our veterans.
And that's part of the reason why he signed on as chief pilot for Miss Montana.
It's really about paying proper tribute. Those folks in World War II are all passing away now. This thing we're doing in Normandy is probably the last time they're going to have a proper tribute paid before they're all gone. So, yeah, there's a deep-seated mission here for me.
Accomplishing that mission means defeating the forces of time and circumstance. Shortly after the war, this plane crashed into the Monongahela River in Pittsburgh and sank. After she was raised from the bottom, she flew for years for the Johnson Flying Service, taking firefighters to remote blazes in Montana forests so they could parachute out to extinguish the flames. Over the years, the plane built a following, and there was no shortage of volunteers, some dressed in period costume, willing to help get her airborne again. Crystal Schoeneman has been there almost since the beginning.
Every weekend for 10 months, plus 2 weeks over Christmas, it's consuming. It's consuming in the best possible way.
After rebuilding both engines and making countless other fixes, large and small, Miss Montana flew again. Two weeks ago, she made a triumphant pass over home base and headed east. She's now traveling in distinguished company, including That's All Brother, believed to be the first C-47 in the main wave of the invasion, and Placid Lassie, another D-Day veteran who almost ended her days in a Florida weed patch before being brought back to life and flown by Eric Zipkin.
I mean, this saw a lot of action.
Saw an enormous amount of action, yeah. I mean, it's extraordinary that I'm able to fly around in an airplane that, not only an airplane like this, but this actual airplane, the rivets that kind of surround me, flew over the beaches of Normandy in 1944.
They will try to do most everything the same way as many of these same planes did during the war. They will drop parachutists.
And the wind takes you, and you're flying this way, and within 4 seconds, your chute's open.
Including Kim Maynard, who used to jump into wildfires to fight them, and her husband, Al Charters, a retired Special Forces officer.
If we don't do it well, and we don't do it accurately, shame on us.
This is personal for him. The invasion, the fierce fighting, and the determination of the Allied troops who suffered staggering losses is not just part of world history to him, it's part of his family's history.
It's the same airspace that my father flew in 3 times on D-Day 75 years ago. So to share that airspace is perfect.
This morning, Miss Montana is in England. She made it across the Atlantic, along with Placid Lassie and the other airplanes waiting for the anniversary. It will be the culmination of that unlikely journey that began more than a year ago. If all goes well, it will end in honor for the D-Day soldiers and glory for a vintage airplane that, without this mission, might never have flown again.
They lived in the same house, worked together 6 days a week, kept their money in a joint bank account, even thought together, Wilbur said.
That's Wilbur Wright, born in 1867. His brother Orville was 4 years younger. And as every school child learns, the Dayton, Ohio duo became the first people in history to successfully pilot an engine-powered airplane.
They had this passion, this mission. They were obsessed to succeed.
But though their plane is proudly displayed at the Smithsonian's Air and Space Museum in Washington, historian David McCullough still believes the Wright brothers are underappreciated.
Every time they went up in this motor-driven airplane, they were risking their lives. This is something that cannot be overemphasized.
So, in a new book published by CBS's Simon & Schuster, McCullough, who has won 2 Pulitzer Prizes, 2 National Book Awards, and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, wants to reintroduce Americans to the Wright brothers and present someone else. There's a Wright sister.
Yes, her name was Catherine, and she was something. She stood about 5'1", and she was a powerhouse. This whole porch they built. The brothers
This
built
whole gingerbread
themselves.
effect,
Yep,
huh?
it's exactly what.
The three siblings lived in this house, now preserved at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. Their father, Milton, was a clergyman. Their mother, Susan, died of tuberculosis in 1889. Two older siblings left home to start their own families.
The house had no running water, no indoor plumbing, no electricity, no telephone, but it did have books, lots of books.
Wilbur was planning to go to Yale when an accident changed everything.
He was hit in the teeth with a hockey stick playing hockey when he was about 18 and knocked out all his upper front teeth. And he retreated from the world, not going out to do much of anything ever, for 3 years.
He ended up opening a bicycle shop with his brother in 1893. They even designed and hand-built their own brand of bike.
If you were coming in to buy a bicycle from the Wright brothers, you'd come in this door, and you'd come over here, and Wilbur or Orville would wait on you.
But in their spare time, the brothers became obsessed with the idea of another form of transportation, flying, reading everything they could find about previous experiments. What was the public view of flying at this point? Was it considered a possibility?
It's impossible. Human beings can't fly, won't fly, ever fly.
Still, the Wrights started building flying machines right in their bicycle shop.
The wonder is that they did everything, not just themselves, but did it here and did it so well.
Starting in 1900, with Catherine managing things at home, the brothers would ship their contraptions to the gusty, isolated dunes of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. There's such a wealth of material here.
And the wealth of material is also representative of their really serious interest in photography.
Their photo collection is now kept at their namesake Wright State University in Dayton. It shows how they started with gliders, which often crashed, finally designing a biplane with an ultralight engine hand-built by one of their shop assistants. Success came on December 17th, 1903. This is probably, as we say, the money shot.
Yes, that's one of the most famous pictures in history. And there's Wilbur running at the side, and Orville's taking off for the first time in all of history to fly, and he's only going to fly 120 feet, and he's only going to be in the air 12 seconds. But they knew immediately after this was over that they could do it, and they were onto something.
And that's where the story stops for most of us. But here, in a cow pasture on the outskirts of Dayton, is where David McCullough says the Wright brothers really invented the art of aviation, testing larger and more powerful planes.
Fly figure eights, everything.
Figure eights, all of that,
and
right
land
here.
and take off.
Meanwhile, the federal government was spending $70,000, a fortune in those days, on this so-called aerodrome, which crashed in the Potomac on takeoff. And no one in Washington seemed to care about what the Wright brothers were accomplishing on their own dime. What happened when they wrote and tried to get the federal government involved?
They were turned down. In fact, they had the door slammed in their face.
But the French, obsessed with aviation, took notice. In August 1908, huge crowds gathered to watch Wilbur Wright take to the air over the town of Lamont.
They went wild, and he was a hero instantly.
And the federal government finally says, aha, when they see that other nations, particularly France, are interested in this contraption.
They woke up. They finally really, oh, maybe we ought to take a look.
So Orville is commissioned to show his stuff in a series of flights at Fort Myer outside Washington. He is breaking all sorts of speed and endurance records when on September 17th, 1908, he is assigned to take up a U.S. Army lieutenant named Thomas Selfridge.
They went up, and Orville crashed, and young Selfridge was killed. And he was the first fatality of a passenger in an airplane ever.
Orville is badly hurt, but nursed back to health by his sister Catherine.
She saw how terribly damaged he was, emotionally, physically. To her, it would be a miracle if he ever walked again, let alone flew an airplane again.
Orville Wright would indeed fly again, and Catherine would go up too. The Wright brothers, who never married, became national heroes. Wilbur died of typhoid in 1912 at age 45. Orville would live until 1948, often accepting honors for what he and his brother accomplished. Their lives a symbol of the power of imagination.
What a testimony to human determination and ingenuity it is. And a profoundly, profoundly American story.